Hello again. So this session I went back out to the wind farm and I really enjoy diving the wind farm, but I don't really know why, because the currents can be insane and amplify even further around the turbines, and it's a really long mission to get out there and back. And the conditions may change at the drop of a hat, making it quite a dangerous place to dive in many respects. But I think that the constrained fishing environment actually syncs up quite well to my own diving style. I went out there with Zach, and in general the current was running about 1.4 knots. But when the current runs at the wind farm, it amplifies. It creates very highly variable areas of the current around the turbines. As the current hits the turbine, it does a number of things. With nowhere else to go, it passes either side of the turbine, and that dramatically increases the speed. It's hard to explain exactly how much, as it's a sharp gradient coming from the turbine, but for the width of a human body to the turbine 90 degrees from the current, probably it concentrates at 1.4 knots to at least several knots. Impossible to swim against for even the best swimmers. Now, it's not all bad news, because just up current from the turbine, there is a small slack area where the width of the turbine and the barely compressible water creates a small triangle around which the current flows, and down current there's a larger area of slack which is directly sheltered by the turbine. The general shape of the turbine also makes an up current through the water to make it slightly harder to dive down as well. The first hour and a half was really hard work, constantly drudging the current, where to go, how not to get swept away. We saw a few small bass, but nothing really we could hunt, and after that time we started to feel a little bit disheartened after all the effort we're putting in, with not much to show for it. And then the current slackened and the fish came in. I shot a mullet and Zach shot a bass, and we're at least happy then that we had a bite. And then, in this short period of time during the current changing direction, I shot what was probably the easiest bass I've shot in my life. No current to worry about, no swell on the surface, just waiting, breathing up, gently holding on, and still as could be, and it just swam underneath me. A nice 52 centimetre bass. And I did hesitate for a second, thinking, do I really want to? Is this a little bit too easy? And then I just went for it. I mean, I wanted something in the bag. It's always our plan, get something in the bag and then go for something a bit more interesting later. So yeah, it was at least something in the bag, and I did make a mental note that the next one I was going to go for, I would at least dive for. That slack current only lasted about half an hour, and we were done quite well, I think, to get 3 fish between us in that time. After that, the current started ripping again in basically completely the opposite direction. And that led to what's probably one of the hardest bass I've ever shot. And I'll do a little bit of analysis first so I can kind of explain what's going on. Getting to the turbine itself was a bit of a mission. The current was so hard at the end of the slack, it took 5 minutes to swim the last 20 metres into the turbine. You basically streamline your body, you long, fast, straight kicks, occasionally popping your head up and seeing you've only moved a metre or so, and by the time I reached the slack, I was honestly exhausted. Breathing up isn't easy. You've got this tiny little triangle and you've got to carefully maintain your position in the triangle so that you don't catch the current from the side and get swept out away from the turbine. After a bit of a breathe up, I dove down. It's about 9 metres, done a spetto, and I didn't see a thing. My breath hold wasn't exactly where it should have been after that hard swim, but I would have expected to see some sign of life. After a few minutes, I tried again, and there was still nothing. At the end of my breath hold, I decided to climb around the turbine, holding on to the anodes. I got about a quarter way around, and I've got to say, it's not an easy climb. It requires quite a lot of strength to pull your body through that level of current. As I came round in the upcurrent slack and then a little bit of slack from two pipes, they were silhouetted about halfway to the surface. I briefly considered trying a shot, but realised that the current would take me suddenly back without me moving a muscle. So I let go and drifted backwards and resurfaced. I already knew that there wasn't a chance for her to boot them because my retreat was so silent. And while breathing up, I formulated a plan. By the time I was ready to dive again, the current had moved around 10 degrees, slightly throwing me off, but other than that, it executed quite well. A really hard duck dive sent me down halfway despite the upcut. The turbine and current disguising my descent, and a few more kicks and I was at the anodes. Quickly pulling myself along, I rounded the turbine with my gun already angled towards where I had seen them earlier. This was the opposite of classical spearfishing and was all adrenaline and power. Speed was essential as I knew my breath hold would be trashed. Getting to position and the gun was in the strongest part of the current, creating difficulty in lining up a good shot. But within a couple of seconds I stabilised enough and fired at the bass closest to my initial line. I anticipated that it would create tangles around the structure, creating difficulty in recovery due to insane current, so I ascended immediately, grabbing my reel halfway to ensure that I would have enough line to surface. Luckily, the spear knocked the bass out of the slack and into the current in the same line as me, so it came straight through, although with some tangles. It is a bit hard to relate the video to the experience. It looks so sedentary on camera compared to reality, but anyway, that was probably the hardest bass I've shot to date. 23-second, fast-paced underwater climbing mission through high current to ambush a 45 centimeter bass from below. Pretty different to usual. And overall, it was a really fun day, and I have to thank Southeast Fishing for lending us the outboard.